My name is Tiffany, 34 years old, and 6 months ago I was sleeping on a frozen park bench in Seattle. Snow was falling that December night, my stomach empty for 3 days straight. 6 months before that, I had a home, a husband, everything I thought mattered. Now I had nothing except the clothes on my back. Then a man in a black suit approached me. "Are you Sophia?" he asked. I was about to say no when he added, "You just inherited $60 million. Before I continue this unbelievable story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how one question changed everything. Because what happened next will make you believe that sometimes life has bigger plans than we could ever imagine. 12 years. That's how long I was married to Mark before everything fell apart. We met at Boston University when I was 21, both studying business administration. Mark had these ambitious dreams about creating the next big tech company, and I believed in every single word he said. After graduation, I had a solid job offer from Ernst & Young as a junior accountant, starting at $70,000 a year. But Mark convinced me his startup needed my skills more. "We're a team Tiff," he said, using that nickname only he called me. "Why make someone else rich when we can build our empire together?" So I turned down the job offer. For the first 3 years, we lived on ramen noodles and hope. I worked 3 part-time jobs while doing the books for Mark's company at night. Waitressing breakfast shift at Denny's, afternoon receptionist at a dental office, weekend cashier at Target. Every penny went into the business. I remember one Christmas we couldn't afford a tree, so I drew one on cardboard and we hung paper ornaments on it. Mark promised that one day we'd have the biggest tree in the neighborhood. The company started gaining traction in year 4. We landed our first major client, then another. By year 7, TechFlow Solutions had 40 employees and annual revenue of $8 million. I was still doing all the accounting, HR, and administrative work, but officially I was just helping out, since Mark said putting me on payroll would complicate taxes. I trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I trust my husband? Year 10 was when everything changed. Microsoft offered to buy TechFlow for $25 million. Mark came home with champagne that night, spinning me around our kitchen. We'd done it. All those years of sacrifice had paid off. The sale went through quickly. Mark handled everything with the lawyers, said it was too complex for me to worry about. I was just happy we could finally relax, maybe start the family we'd been postponing. The warning signs started small. Mark began working late again, even though he'd sold the company and was only consulting. His phone suddenly had a password. He'd close his laptop when I walked into the room. When I asked about our finances, he'd say everything was in investment accounts growing nicely. "Don't worry about it, babe. I've got it handled." Then I found the text messages. He'd left his phone charging in the kitchen while he showered. A notification popped up from someone named Jessica with heart emojis. My hands shook as I picked up the phone. The preview showed enough, "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby." Jessica was his 26-year-old assistant at the consulting firm. When I scrolled through their conversation, I discovered they'd been together for 8 months. I confronted Mark that night. He didn't even deny it. "I'm not happy anymore, Tiffany. I haven't been for years." Just like that. No apology, no explanation. He wanted a divorce, and he wanted it fast. That's when I learned the truth about our finances. The house we'd lived in for 5 years. Only Mark's name was on the deed. He'd handled all the paperwork, told me it was better for taxes. Our joint bank accounts. Emptied 3 weeks ago, transferred to accounts only in his name. The investment portfolio from the company sale never existed in both our names. His lawyer was from Preston and Associates, the kind of firm that charges $2,000 an hour. I got a free consultation from legal aid. The young lawyer, fresh out of law school, looked at my case with sympathy but little hope. "Without documentation of your contributions to the company, without your name on any assets, this is going to be difficult," she said. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Mark's lawyer painted me as a housewife who'd contributed nothing to his success. No employment records at TechFlow, no ownership documents, no proof of my 18-hour days building his dream. The judge awarded me $5,000 as a goodwill gesture and my 10-year-old Honda Civic. That was it. 12 years of my life valued at $5,000. After the divorce finalized, I stood outside the courthouse holding an envelope with $5,000 cash and car keys. No home, no job, no references from the past decade. The Holiday Inn wanted $80 a night, but I found a motel on Aurora Avenue that charged $300 a week. The room smelled like cigarettes and mold, but it had a bed and a door that locked. I updated my resume that first night, highlighting my accounting degree and the job offers I'd turned down a decade ago. but every interview ended the same way. Can you explain this 12-year gap in employment? When I said I'd been managing finances for my husband's startup, they'd ask for references, documentation, anything official. I had nothing. After 53 job rejections, I lowered my standards. Applied for receptionist positions, data entry, anything office-related. Still nothing. Finally, I got hired at an Italian restaurant downtown as a server. The manager, Tony, took pity on me when I admitted I'd never waited tables before. "You look like you need a break," he said. I lasted 3 weeks, dropped one too many plates, mixed up orders, couldn't keep up with the pace. Tony let me go gently, even gave me $200 from his own pocket. "Sorry, hun, this business ain't for everyone." The Honda broke down on Interstate 5 during rush hour. The mechanic said it needed a new transmission, $3,000. I had $2,300 left. What choice did I have? I paid it, leaving me with nothing for the motel. The owner, a man named Rick, who always smelled like beer, gave me 1 week to pay the 2 months I owed. After that, you're out. I got bills too. For 1 month, I lived in my car. Parked in 24-hour Walmart lots, showered at the YMCA with a day pass I couldn't afford to renew. Then the car got towed. Apparently you can't park in the same spot for more than 72 hours. The impound fee was $400 I didn't have. They auctioned my Honda 2 weeks later. That's how I became truly homeless. The first night on the street, I didn't sleep at all. Sat in a McDonald's until they kicked me out at 2 a.m., then walked until dawn. Found a shelter, but it was full. They put me on a waiting list. Could be days, could be weeks, the volunteer said. I learnt the rhythms of homelessness quickly. The library opened at 9, stayed until closing at 8. Bathroom at the Starbucks on Pine Street if you walked in confidently. The cathedral on Capitol Hill served free lunch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Safeway threw out sandwiches at 11 p.m, still wrapped, still good. My phone died after 2 months when I couldn't pay the bill. Called my sister Emma in Texas from a payphone collect. Her husband answered. "Tiffany, Emma can't talk right now." I heard my sister crying in the background, heard him tell her I was probably calling for money. He hung up, reached out to college friends through Facebook on library computers. Messages went unread or got brief responses. "So sorry to hear that. Things are tight here too. Everyone assumed I wanted money. Maybe I did. Pride is a luxury you can't afford when you're hungry." Seattle winter arrived early that year. November brought freezing rain that soaked through my jacket, the only warm thing I owned. Spent nights riding buses the number 7 from downtown to Rainier Beach and back over and over. The drivers knew but didn't say anything. Some nights I'd huddle in ATM vestibules until security moved me along. Got pneumonia in December. The ER treated me, gave me antibiotics, discharged me back to the street 12 hours later. Lay on a park bench, fever so high I hallucinated my mother was there. She'd died when I was 15, and in my delirium, she held my hand and told me it would be okay. 3 days before Christmas, I found myself on the Aurora Bridge at 3 a.m., looking down at the dark water, thinking how easy it would be to stop fighting, to just let go. The cold had gotten inside my bones. I couldn't remember what being warm felt like, what being valuable felt like. Mark was probably with Jessica right now, warm in our old bed, in our old house, living the life I'd helped build. That's when I met James Harrison. I stood on that bridge, hands numb on the railing, when footsteps approached behind me. Didn't turn around. Figured it was police or another homeless person. Then a voice, professional and urgent. "Excuse me, miss. Are you Sophia?" I turned slowly. A man in an expensive black suit stood there looking wildly out of place at 3 a.m. on a bridge. Late 50s, silver hair, carrying a leather briefcase. "I'm Tiffany," I said, voice hoarse from the cold. He stepped closer, studying my face under the streetlight. Sophia Tiffany Montgomery. Nobody had called me that in 20 years. My mother named me Sophia Tiffany, but I'd always gone by my middle name. Even my driver's license said Tiffany S. Montgomery. Well back when I had a driver's license. "How do you know that name?" "My name is James Harrison. I'm an attorney with Harrison Klein and Associates. I've been looking for you for 6 weeks. Your grandmother, Eleanor Montgomery, passed away 2 months ago." Grandmother. I almost laughed. My grandmother died when I was 5. That's what Mum had told me about Dad's mother. "Your maternal grandmother, Eleanor Montgomery, died October 15th of this year. She left very specific instructions to find you." He pulled out a folder, shielding it from the rain. "She left you her entire estate. Approximately $60 million in liquid assets plus properties." The words didn't make sense. Mum's family had cut her off when she married my father. He was a mechanic, blue-collar, wrong side of Boston. Mum never spoke about her family, said they were dead to her. When she died of cancer, Dad and I didn't even notify them. Dad passed 5 years later in a car accident, leaving me alone at 20. There must be a mistake, I said. I don't have a grandmother. I don't have anybody. James opened an umbrella, holding it over both of us. Eleanor Rose Montgomery, born April 2nd, 1938. Her daughter Catherine married Robert Coleman against the family's wishes. Catherine was disowned, but Eleanor never stopped loving her daughter, or her granddaughter. He showed me a photograph. My mother, young, maybe 18, standing next to an elegant older woman. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. Definitely related. Mum never said anything. Pride runs in your family, Miss Montgomery. Your mother refused to reach out, and Eleanor respected that choice. But she kept track of you. Every graduation, every milestone. She has files going back 30 years. Files? My legs felt weak. Maybe from hunger, maybe from shock. Your elementary school report cards, high school graduation photos, your wedding announcement from the Boston Globe. He paused. Your recent divorce filing. Someone had been watching me my entire life. While I was sleeping in doorways, someone knew. Why didn't she help sooner when I needed it? She tried. Several times over the years, she attempted contact. Your husband intercepted the letters, returned them unopened. She had investigators confirm you never received them. After your divorce, she modified her will immediately, but her health declined rapidly. She passed before we could locate you. Mark knew... My voice cracked. Mark knew about her. We have documentation of certified letters sent to your marital address, all returned with his signature marked refused. Your grandmother's investigator also reported that Mark had been hiding assets in offshore accounts for 3 years before your divorce. She was gathering evidence to help you, but the cancer took her too quickly. James pulled out more papers. The inheritance has conditions. You must formally accept it within 48 hours of being notified, which means by 5 a.m. day after tomorrow. If you refuse or fail to claim it, everything goes to various charities. Why the time limit? Your grandmother wanted to ensure her brother's children, your second cousins, couldn't contest the will. They've been circling like vultures. Once you accept and the 48 hours pass, it's ironclad. They get nothing. He handed me a business card, heavy stock embossed letters. There's a room reserved for you at the Four Seasons downtown. The penthouse suite. Your grandmother kept it booked for the last 2 months, hoping we'd find you. There are clothes, waiting toiletries, everything you need. My car is parked just off the bridge. Will you come with me? I looked down at the water one more time, then back at this stranger offering me a different kind of escape. How do I know this is real? How do I know you're not some crazy person? He pulled out his phone, showed me the law firm's website, his profile, the news article about Eleanor Montgomery's death. Seattle Times, October 16th. You can verify everything at the hotel. The room is prepaid, whether you come or not. What did I have to lose? If he murdered me, at least I'd die warm. Okay. The Mercedes had heated seats. I'd forgotten that existed leather that warmed against your body. James didn't talk during the drive, let me sit in silence as Seattle's late-night streets passed by. The Four Seasons lobby blazed with light. The desk clerk didn't even blink at my appearance, just handed over a key card. Welcome, Miss Montgomery. We've been expecting you. The penthouse had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. A bedroom bigger than the motel room I'd lost. A bathroom with a soaking tub and shower with 12 jets. The closet held clothes and my size tags still on. Designer jeans, cashmere sweaters, a winter coat that cost more than I'd made in my best year. James set a briefcase on the dining table. These are the basic documents. Bank statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. Your grandmother's letter to you is here as well. Take tonight to review everything. I'll return tomorrow at noon for your decision. After he left, I stood under the hot shower for an hour crying until I had no tears left. Wrapped in a robe that felt like clouds, I sat on the bed and opened Eleanor's letter. Her handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned cursive. My dearest Sophia, if you are reading this, then I have failed in my greatest wish to know you in life. I have watched you from afar for 34 years, proud of every accomplishment, heartbroken by every struggle. Your mother was my greatest joy and my deepest regret. I let pride separate us, and I cannot make those years right, but I can ensure you never struggle again. The money is yours without condition, except one use it to become who you were meant to be before the world tried to break you. Your loving grandmother, Eleanor. I didn't sleep that night. Sat at the dining table reading through 200 pages of documents while eating room service for the first time in my life. $30 soup never tasted so profound. The numbers didn't seem real. $62 million in liquid assets. 3 properties, a Seattle mansion in Windermere, a Manhattan penthouse on the Upper East Side, a Montana ranch spanning 2,000 acres. But the investigators' reports on Mark made my hands shake with rage. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands holding $15 million established 3 years before our divorce. Screenshots of emails to his lawyer strategizing how to hide assets. Records of him transferring our joint savings in small increments to avoid detection. He'd been planning to leave me for 3 years while I kept believing in our marriage. Eleanor had hired forensic accountants who documented my contributions to TechFlow. They'd found former employees willing to testify that I'd worked 18-hour days, handled all financial operations, been instrumental in landing key clients. One email from an early investor said, "Mark's the face, but Tiffany's the brain. Without her, TechFlow would have folded year 1. 10. She'd built a case to prove Mark committed fraud during our divorce, but she died before she could give it to me. At dawn, I finally crashed sleeping in a bed that felt like floating. Woke at 11 to sunshine streaming through windows. Put on new clothes, designer jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater softer than anything I'd owned. My reflection looked foreign. Same face that had stared back from bathroom mirrors and gas stations, but clean rested, dressed like I mattered. James arrived precisely at noon with 2 associates. "Have you decided?" "Before I sign anything, I need to know more about Eleanor. Who was she beyond the money?" He smiled the first warmth I'd seen from him. "She was remarkable. Built her fortune from nothing after your grandfather died. Started with 1 apartment building, turned it into a real estate empire. Never remarried, devoted herself to business and philanthropy. Funded women's shelters, scholarship programs, small business loans for female entrepreneurs. She said watching you struggle reminded her of her own early years. Why didn't my mother reconcile with her? Catherine inherited Eleanor's pride. When the family rejected Robert, your father Catherine declared them dead to her. Eleanor wrote letters for 15 years, all returned unopened. After Catherine passed, Eleanor tried reaching out to you directly, but you were a minor, and your father wanted nothing to do with the Montgomerys. Made sense. Dad had been bitter about how they'd treated Mum. The cousins you mentioned, tell me about them. Harold and Patricia Montgomery, Eleanor's nephew and niece. They expected to inherit everything. Have been borrowing against that expectation for years. Without this inheritance, they'll likely face bankruptcy. Good. The word came out harder than intended. James pushed the papers across. Then you're ready to sign. I picked up the pen, a Mont Blanc that probably cost more than I'd spent on food in 3 months of homelessness. One question first. Can I use this money to destroy my ex-husband? James and his associates exchanged glances. You can use it however you wish within legal bounds. Then yes, I accept. The signature felt like writing a new life into existence. Sophia Tiffany Montgomery, my full name reclaimed. After the paperwork, James introduced me to Gregory Walsh, Eleanor's financial advisor. Mid-40s competent, had managed Eleanor's wealth for 12 years. Your grandmother was very specific about maintaining diverse portfolios. Real estate, stocks, bonds, some aggressive growth funds. With proper management, you'll never need to worry about money again. I want to add something to our agenda, I said. I want to hire the best divorce attorney in Washington state. I want to reopen my divorce case based on fraud. Gregory nodded. Margaret Chen is who you want. She's handled several high-profile cases involving hidden assets. Expensive but devastating in court. Set up a meeting. The next week blurred past. Meetings with accountants, lawyers, investment advisors. Margaret Chen took my case immediately after reviewing Eleanor's investigator files. This is clear fraud. We can not only reopen the divorce, but pursue criminal charges. Do it! I moved into the Windermere house, 5 bedrooms overlooking Lake Washington. Found photographs Eleanor had saved my kindergarten school picture college graduation. Even my wedding photo with Mark's face carefully cut out. She'd been collecting pieces of my life, storing them for a reunion that never came. Mark discovered my inheritance when the new lawsuit papers arrived at his girlfriend's apartment. He'd moved in with Jessica after selling our house. My new iPhone, fully paid, rang constantly. His number blocked. Jessica's number blocked. His lawyer calling to negotiate. Margaret handled them all. He wants to meet, she told me. Says it's all a misunderstanding. Tell him I'll see him in court. The lawsuit hit Mark like a tsunami he never saw coming. Margaret Chen had filed both civil and criminal charges: fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit got involved when they discovered the scope of his offshore holdings. Turns out hiding assets during divorce proceedings while claiming poverty is federal fraud when it crosses state lines. Mark showed up at the Windermere house on a Tuesday morning looking haggard. I watched him through the security cameras, pacing at the gate, pressing the intercom repeatedly. "Tiffany, please. We need to talk. This is insane. You know I never meant to hurt you." I let him stand there for an hour before calling security to remove him. Jessica lasted 2 more weeks. She called me from a block number that Margaret traced. "He's losing it," she said, voice trembling. "Drinking, constantly screaming about you ruining his life. I didn't know about the money he hid. I didn't know any of it." "Then you're as naive as I was," I said, and hung up. The forensic accountants found more than anyone expected. Mark hadn't just hidden the divorce assets. He'd been embezzling from Microsoft during his consulting contract, billing for services never rendered, padding expenses. When Microsoft learned about it through our lawsuit's discovery process, they filed their own charges. Margaret called me after a particularly brutal deposition. "He's offered to settle. We'll return 10 million of the hidden assets if you drop criminal charges." No. "Tiffany, with a settlement, you're guaranteed to recover something. Trials are unpredictable. I don't want his money. I want justice. And I have 60 million that says I can afford to wait for it." The trial began 6 months later. By then I'd transformed my grandmother's fortune into something more. Montgomery Industries had been a real estate company. I restructured it into a venture capital firm focused on women-led startups. Hired former TechFlow employees who'd been loyal to me, not Mark. They testified at trial about my contributions, how I'd saved the company multiple times with my financial strategies. Mark took the stand on day 3, still arrogant, still convinced he could charm his way out. The prosecutor destroyed him with his own emails, his own banking records. The jury watched him lie, watched video evidence, prove. Those lies watched him crumble when confronted with proof he'd stolen not just from me, but from multiple clients. Jessica testified against him for immunity. Turned out she'd kept recordings of him bragging about hiding money, about how stupid I was for trusting him. She played one for the court, where he laughed about me working 3 jobs while he moved money offshore. She actually believed we were building something together, his voice said through the speakers, while I sat in the gallery stone-faced. The verdict came back guilty on all counts: fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. The judge ordered full restitution, 15 million, to me 8 million, to Microsoft plus penalties. But Mark had spent too much maintaining his lifestyle with Jessica, legal fees, bad investments trying to rebuild after losing his consulting contracts. He declared bankruptcy within a month. I bought TechFlow from the bankruptcy court for 2 million, a fraction of its value. Renamed it Phoenix Technologies. Rehired the engineering team Mark had laid off to cut costs. Within 6 months, we landed 3 major contracts he'd lost through mismanagement. The company that had sold for 25 million was worth 40 million within a year under my leadership. Mark's final attempt at contact came through his mother. She called me on a Thursday afternoon crying. "He's living in my basement. No job, no prospects. Can't you forgive him? You have so much now. He had everything," I said, "and he made his choices. You're destroying him." "No, he destroyed himself. I'm just no longer cushioning his fall." She hung up on me. I donated 5 million to Seattle's homeless shelters that week in her name. The tax receipt was mailed to her address. The Windermere house became my base of operations. I converted 2 bedrooms into offices, hired staff who'd experienced similar betrayals. Sarah, my COO, had lost her company when her business partner and husband conspired against her. James, my CFO, had been wrongfully terminated weeks before his pension vested. We called ourselves the Phoenix Group, rising from ashes others had made of our lives. One morning, a year after the trial, I saw Mark at a Starbucks downtown. He was wearing a cheap suit, carrying resumes, looking every inch the desperate job seeker I'd been 2 years ago. He saw me, started to approach. I looked through him like he was invisible, the way people had looked through me when I was homeless. He stopped, turned away, shoulders slumped. I bought the Starbucks, had him banned. The Phoenix Group became more than a business. It became a movement. Sarah and I founded the Women's Economic Justice Initiative, providing legal resources for women facing financial abuse during divorce. We'd both learnt the hard way that joint assets mean nothing when one person controls the paperwork. David entered my life at a fundraiser for homeless veterans. An architect who'd lost his wife to cancer, he designed transitional housing that maintained dignity while providing support. No institutional grey walls or metal bunks. Real homes where people could heal. Environment shapes recovery, he said, showing me blueprints for a village of tiny houses. Nobody gets better feeling like they're in prison. I funded the project immediately. $20 million for 5 villages across Seattle. David insisted on volunteering his services, refusing payment. This isn't about money, it's about doing something that matters. We worked together for months, no romance, just shared purpose. He'd bring coffee to planning meetings. Remember, I liked oat milk when I'd only mentioned it once. Small kindnesses I'd forgotten existed. When the first village opened, housing 50 people, he stood beside me at the ribbon cutting. You did this, he said. We did this. No, Tiffany, your vision, your funding, your insistence on dignity over efficiency. I just drew pictures. The Phoenix portfolio grew to include 12 companies, all led by women who'd been underestimated, undermined, undervalued. Each success story felt like personal vindication. The automotive engineer whose ideas had been stolen by male colleagues. The restaurant owner whose husband had sabotaged her first location. The app developer whose co-founder had locked her out of her own code. Harold and Patricia Montgomery, the cousins who'd expected to inherit Eleanor's fortune, tried suing me. Claimed undue influence, mental incompetence on Eleanor's part. Margaret Chen handled it almost casually. Your grandmother anticipated this. She had 3 psychiatric evaluations done in her final year, all confirming mental competence. She also recorded video testimony about her decisions. Would you like to see it? I watched Eleanor, frail but fierce, staring into the camera. I leave everything to Sophia because she's the only Montgomery who earned success instead of expecting it. Harold and Patricia have spent 40 years waiting for me to die. Sophia spent 12 years building someone else's dream. She deserves to build her own. Hate. The cousins dropped the lawsuit after seeing the video. My shelter work expanded beyond Seattle. Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Each city had thousands of people, one disaster away from the streets. Divorce, medical bankruptcy, job loss. The reasons varied, but the vulnerability was universal. I insisted on hiring formerly homeless individuals for every position possible. Security, maintenance, administration. People who'd lived it understood the balance between support and dignity. One hire stood out: Marcus, a former Boeing engineer who'd lost everything in the 2008 crash. Brilliant man, MIT graduate, had spent 3 years on the streets before finding our shelter. He now ran our job training program, teaching coding to residents. Nobody's irredeemable, he said during his interview. Sometimes people just need someone to see their worth when they can't see it themselves. Mark's mother called again 18 months after his conviction. Mark had attempted suicide, was in psychiatric hold. Despite everything, I felt something. Not sympathy for him, but sadness for the waste. He'd had everything: talent, opportunity, partnership. He'd thrown it away for ego and greed. I paid for his treatment anonymously. Not forgiveness, just humanity. The bill went to a trust Margaret established that couldn't be traced to me. Mark never knew, and I preferred it that way. Some gifts shouldn't come with gratitude or guilt attached. David and I grew closer through shared work, not romantic pursuit. He'd show up at shelters to check construction, find me serving meals. I'd visit his firm, find him training formerly homeless veterans in architectural software. Neither of us pushed for more than friendship. We'd both lost too much to rush toward anything. You know what I appreciate about you, he said one evening, reviewing plans for village number 6. You don't need saving. Neither of us does. We're just 2 people choosing to build something better. The media noticed eventually. Seattle Times ran a profile, From Homeless to Humanitarian, the Tiffany Montgomery story. I declined most interviews, but agreed to one with a financial podcast focusing on women's economic empowerment. The host asked about forgiveness, about moving forward. Forgiveness isn't about the person who hurt you, I said. It's about freeing yourself from carrying their poison. I forgave Mark to reclaim my own peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or allowing someone back into your life. It means choosing your healing over their hold on you. The podcast went viral, millions of women sharing similar stories, similar betrayals, similar recoveries. We created a foundation responding to every message, offering resources, legal aid, emergency funding. The Phoenix Rising Fund, managed by Sarah and 3 other survivors, distributed $50 million in its first year. 2 years after that night on the bridge, I stood in my office overlooking Seattle. Phoenix Technologies had just gone public, valued at $200 million. We employed 500 people, 60% women, 30% formerly homeless. Every employee owned stock options. When we rang the opening bell at the NYSE, 50 former TechFlow employees who'd testified for me, stood on the platform. Margaret Chen called that afternoon. Mark's working at a call centre in Tacoma, makes $15 an hour, lives in a studio apartment. Good for him, I said, meaning it. Work was dignity, even humble work. He'd fallen from heights he'd built on others' backs, but at least he was climbing with his own hands now. The Phoenix Villages housed 800 people across 5 locations. David's designs had won architectural awards, but more importantly, they'd achieved 90% success rate in transitioning residents to permanent housing. He'd revolutionized the concept, proving beauty and dignity cost no more than institutional bleakness. We should celebrate, David suggested after the IPO. Dinner somewhere that doesn't involve blueprints or spreadsheets. Our first actual date 2 years into knowing each other. We went to a small Italian place, not Tony's, where I'd failed as a waitress, but similar. Family-owned, authentic, warm. We talked about everything except work. His late wife's garden, my mother's recipes books. We'd loved places we'd never travelled. I wasn't looking for this, he admitted over dessert. Wasn't looking for anyone. Neither was I. Maybe that's why it works. We took it slow, both too scarred to rush. Coffee became lunch, became dinner, became weekend trips to check village sites that happened to be near vineyards or beaches. He never stayed at the Windermere house. I never went to his apartment. We existed in the spaces between our separate lives until those spaces grew larger than the separation. Eleanor's birthday would have been April 2nd. I visited her grave for the first time, bringing roses from the Windermere garden she'd never seen bloom. Her headstone was simple: Eleanor Rose Montgomery, builder of dreams. I sat on the grass telling her about the villages, the companies, the women we'd helped. I wish you'd reached out directly, I said to the stone. Wish we'd had time. But maybe this was your way of teaching me the last lesson, that sometimes help comes after the breaking, not before. That strength isn't avoiding the fall, but learning to rise. A woman approached, elderly, elegant. You must be Sophia. Tiffany, I corrected automatically, then caught myself. Actually, both. Who are you? Margaret Winters, your grandmother's best friend. We built our first businesses together in the 70s, when banks wouldn't lend to women without male co-signers. Hagain, she studied my face. You have her eyes. Her spine too, from what I've heard. She told me stories Eleanor never could. How she'd started with one building in Rainier Valley everyone said was worthless. How she'd convinced tenants to help renovate in exchange for reduced rent. How that one building became 2, then 10, then an empire. She always said the best investments were in people others had written off. Why didn't she contact me herself? Why all the investigators and distance? Fear, Margaret said simply. She'd lost Catherine over pride. She was terrified of losing you the same way. Easier to love from afar than risk rejection up close. She regretted it at the end, asked me to tell you if I ever met you. You were loved every day of your life, even when you couldn't feel it. I donated a wing to the Seattle Public Library in Eleanor's name that month. The Montgomery Reading Room focused on financial literacy, job training resources, small business development. The dedication plaque read, for those writing their next chapter. Mark's mother died that winter. I attended the funeral, sat in the back, watched him grieve. He looked older, greyer, smaller somehow. Jessica wasn't there. I learned later she'd married a Microsoft executive, moved to California, erased Mark from her history. After the service, Mark saw me, started to approach, then stopped. We stood 20 feet apart. 2 people who'd once promised forever, now strangers separated by more than distance. I left first. Some bridges shouldn't be rebuilt. The Phoenix companies thrived. We focused on second chances, hiring people with gaps in resumes, failures in their past, potential in their future. The Wall Street Journal called us radically humanistic capitalism. I called it common sense. People who'd been broken understood the value of rebuilding. They worked harder, stayed loyal, longer innovated. From experience, others couldn't imagine. My first book came out 3 years after The Inheritance. Phoenix Rising, a memoir of loss, homelessness, and hope. All proceeds went to shelters. The tour brought thousands of women forward with similar stories. We created Phoenix Circle support groups in 50 cities for women rebuilding after financial betrayal. David proposed at Village 7's opening, no fanfare, just quiet words while residents moved into their new homes. I want to keep building with you, not just buildings, but life. I said yes. We married at the courthouse with Sarah and Marcus as witnesses. No white dress, no reception hall, just promises between 2 people who'd learned the weight of words. Our honeymoon was visiting Phoenix villages in other cities, seeing how the model translated what worked, what needed adjusting. 10 years have passed since that night on the Aurora Bridge. I stand in the Phoenix Technologies boardroom, looking out at Seattle where I once slept in doorways. We're worth $2 billion now, employ 3,000 people globally. Every Phoenix company maintains the same rule: 30% of hires must be people recovering from homelessness, addiction, incarceration, or domestic violence. The Windermere House hosts dinners for shelter residents every Sunday. David cooks, having discovered a talent for it. We serve 40 people each week, sitting at tables throughout the house, no separation between us and them, because there is no us and them. Just people at different points in their journeys. Mark appeared in the news recently. He'd started a small consulting firm, legitimate this time. The article mentioned his fall from grace, his redemption through honest work. I felt nothing reading it. Not satisfaction, not anger, just the neutral observation of someone watching a stranger's life from distance. He'd become a cautionary tale others told, while I'd become the story I needed to hear when I had nothing. Sarah runs Phoenix Technologies now as CEO. I chair the board but focus mainly on the Phoenix Foundation. We've helped 12,000 women leave abusive financial situations, provided $100 million in microloans to women-owned businesses, funded legal challenges to discriminatory lending practices. Eleanor's $60 million has become $600 million deployed for change. The letter she left me sits framed in my office. Become who you were meant to be before the world tried to break you. I did, but not how either of us expected. The breaking was part of the becoming. Without those nights on the street, I wouldn't understand the fear in every woman who walks into our shelters. Without Mark's betrayal, I wouldn't recognize the signs in others' stories. Without the hunger, the cold, the invisibility, I wouldn't know that dignity matters more than charity. David finds me in the office some evenings working late on funding proposals or village expansions. You can't save everyone, he reminds me gently. No, I agree, but I can try to save more than was saved yesterday. My mother's grave sits next to Eleanor's now. I had her moved from the public cemetery in Tacoma, laid her beside the mother she'd rejected, but who never stopped loving her. Their headstones face each other, a conversation continuing beyond death. I bring flowers monthly, sit between them, tell them about the women we've helped, the families, how's the dignity restored. Harold and Patricia Montgomery both filed bankruptcy 5 years ago. I bought their debts through a third party, forgave them quietly. They never knew. Revenge had lost its appeal once I'd built something better than anything they'd tried to take. Success, I learned, isn't about those who doubted you being proven wrong. It's about those who needed you being proven right to hope. The doorbell rings at the Windermere House one December evening. A woman stands there, mid-40s, familiar somehow. I'm Jessica, she says unnecessarily. I recognize her despite the years. I need help. My husband. He's done what Mark did. Hidden everything. I have nothing. The irony should be delicious. The woman who helped destroy my marriage now living my former life. But I see only another woman discovering that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Come in, I say. Let's call my lawyer. She cries in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd once cooked Mark's favorite meals. David makes tea, doesn't ask questions, just provides quiet support. Sarah comes over with Margaret Chen's contact information. We sit with Jessica until midnight, planning her path forward, offering resources, being the help I'd needed and never found. Why? She asks as she leaves. Why would you help me? Because somebody should have helped me. Nobody did, so now I help everyone. I can even those who hurt me, especially those who hurt me. Breaking the cycle matters more than continuing it. She sends a card every Christmas now. Rebuilt her life in Portland, works as an advocate for financial abuse victims. Became what her suffering shaped her to be, not what her choices had defined her as. We all have multiple chapters, some written in pain, some in joy, all part of the story we become. Looking back, I wouldn't change it. Not the homelessness, not Mark's betrayal, not the nights I thought dying would be easier than surviving. Eleanor's money gave me power, but the streets gave me purpose. One without the other would have left me either bitter or blind. Sometimes I walk past the bench where I slept, the doorways that sheltered me, the bridge where James Harrison changed everything with 5 words. Are you Sophia? You just inherited $60 million. But the real inheritance wasn't the money. It was discovering that rock bottom could become the foundation for building something unshakable. Sometimes life takes everything away so it can give you what you truly deserve. Not as reward or punishment, but as transformation. We break to become. We fall to rise. We lose ourselves to find who we were always meant to be. And that's the truth I learned. sleeping on cold concrete while my grandmother's fortune waited. You're never truly homeless if you learn to build a home in yourself that no one can take away. Money just made it easier to help others find that same unshakable ground. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild from nothing? What would you do if you lost everything tomorrow, then gained more than you ever imagined? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear that their current struggle isn't their final chapter. Thank you for listening to my journey. May you find your own unexpected inheritance, whatever form it takes.